In the big house at Chatham, the main structure. But Chatham was much more than this house. It was a sprawling place of activity, of agriculture, of industry. And the dominant residents here throughout Chatham's first 90 years of history were enslaved people. Theirs was a life of constant rhythms, governed by the season, governed by the work in the fields, the downtime in winter, and those rhythms became an important part of slaves' everyday lives. The day after New Year's, 1805, Overseer Stark approached a group of slaves and ordered them back to work. But this apparently was not what they understood the plan to be. They weren't done with their holiday celebrations yet, and they resisted, and an argument followed. The argument soon escalated into violence as some of the slaves grabbed Overseer Stark, tied him up, and whipped him. They turned the whip, typically used on slaves, on the overseer. It's a powerful symbol of rebellion, of course, and Stark was eventually able to escape. He traveled to Falmouth, rushed to Falmouth, just a mile to our north here, and gathered up a couple of men who were known to be rather impatient and rough with enslaved people, and brought them back. The violence was renewed once again, and it elevated to the point where one of the men who had come from Falmouth, one of the white men, was mortally wounded in the fight. Another of the slaves was killed in the fight. Another slave would attempt to escape the entire melee by rushing across the Rappahannock River on the ice. He fell through the ice and drowned. It was one of the most violent episodes of slave rebellion in this region prior to the American Civil War. The authorities reacted strongly. Of course, one thing about slavery is that it wasn't just a relationship between the overseer and the slave, but the overseer, the owner, had an entire government infrastructure behind them. And so the force of law went to work in favor of William Fitzhugh, in favor of the control of these enslaved people. Eventually, two of the slaves were tried, including Robin, another one named Abraham. They were both sentenced to hang. We believe Abraham was hung. It's possible that Robin was not and was instead sold or shipped south to the Caribbean, to a faraway place where he could no longer cause any trouble. To give you an idea of the extent to which the state, Commonwealth of Virginia, helped sustain slavery, after the rebellion, William Fitzhugh was permitted to petition the state for reimbursement for the value of the slaves who were lost or killed during the rebellion. And he received that reimbursement from the state. This was obviously an incentive for slave owners to react strongly to rebellions, knowing that they had the support of the Commonwealth of Virginia in their actions. Now, this rebellion came very shortly after a rumored rebellion or conspiracy near Richmond called Gabriel's Rebellion. And the fact is that the fear of slave rebellion would govern slave owners and, in fact, Southern governments up until and even through parts of the Civil War. It was one of their greatest fears because in Virginia there were 240,000 slaves at the time of the rebellion here at Chatham, almost 500,000 by the time of the American Civil War. So behind the veneer of a beautiful house like Chatham is a life of tension, sometimes violence, often discomfort, but one of simmering discord that in its own way would ultimately lead to the war that would end slavery in America once and for all. How's that?